All right, looks like pretty much everybody's here, I think, that registered, but anybody can still join while we're going, so not a problem. So, morning, everybody. Hope you're all staying safe and healthy out there. I want to welcome and thank you all for attending CloudPoint Geographic's webinar on learning how to maintain your cemetery records with GIS. My name is Bill Steele. I handle the business development and marketing for CloudPoint, and we're going to be hosting more webinars in the coming weeks as well, as we all adjust to this new normal of work and communication. So keep your eyes peeled and spread the word to anyone you think may benefit from attending our webinars. I just want to quickly go over the functions you have available to you. Notice your microphones, video feeds have been automatically muted or shut off. For questions, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So if you just click that, little window will pop open and it'll show you how to submit a question there. We'll be answering any questions at the end of the presentation. If you have trouble hearing or seeing the presentation, just shoot me a comment in the chat room. I'll be monitoring that as well. But other than that, everything should be good to go and shouldn't be much more that you guys will need. So with that, we're just going to get started here. So what is GIS? GIS stands for Geographic Information System. Most people just think of it as really fancy maps, but it's really much more than that. We use lines, points, and shapes, or polygons as we call them, to record and present information. You can collect, store, analyze, manage, present any type of spatial and geographical data that you'd like. And we primarily work with municipalities, governments, for everything from figuring out your taxes based on your land parcels to tracking storm drains for maintenance records, figuring out garbage truck, snowplow routes, things like that. And that's how we really landed on this specific use of GIS. The more we worked with these entities, the more they saw what we could do and how it could benefit their communities in helping manage their cemeteries. From that, we just, we realized all types of cemeteries, regardless of ownership, could really use our help. So those layers of data we've talked about, they're great, but how does that look for a cemetery? Well, for a cemetery's purposes, you'll need at least 2 layers, aerial image and the grave layer. And then any additional layers will be dependent upon your needs. So this diagram shows a lot layer, roadway pathway layer in there. And then behind each of these layers is a database or spreadsheet of the information. And these 2 things make up a complete GIS. So in order to make GIS then accessible to everybody, we utilize Esri's web maps and apps to bring it to you in the public. And we create applications, all accessible through your browser. They can be secured or public. And then these allow you to view, edit, share your data. And samples of these applications is what Aaron's going to demo for you guys today. So this webinar is going to show you 3 different options for cemetery management, even though the possibilities are really endless. And they're all cemeteries that we've actually worked for. So Erin Strickler, one of our professional engineers, she also heads our cemetery management team. She's going to first walk us through a very basic setup for tracking interments in a cemetery, show you how you can easily add, edit, manage that information. Then we're going to have a little more in-depth version. Actual lots and graves are drawn out on the map. Interment tracking, you can see grave availability. And then lastly, just really, really more in-depth personalized version for a cemetery, even more layers and options to it there. You can see routing on here as well. So again, any questions that may come up during the presentation, just post them in the Q&A box and we'll go through them at the end. And so with that, I'm going to turn the screen over to Aaron.
Thanks, Bill. Can you see my screen okay? So like Bill said, we're going to show you 3 examples, but we really have determined early on in our work that it's really there's really no one-size-fits-all solution. Everything that you're going to see today is customizable. We don't sell software, but we provide you a a flexible platform. And like Bill mentioned, this is possible because we use the Esri platform, which leverages the cloud to provide you secure, user-friendly access to your GIS. So what you can see on your screen is the most basic application that we use. What we will do is fly our drones to provide you high resolution imagery, and this is really what makes this possible, particularly for cemeteries who don't have any mapping information. This is an easy, user-friendly, really do-it-yourself option when you have no other data, no mapping data, no sales data. Maybe the only records you have are literally what's on the headstones. So I'm going to show you how you might use this to start your own GIS. I have started some over here already. And this is all these applications are accessible through a browser, so any mobile device with the ability to access the internet can use these. So you could be in the field looking at your headstones and typing in this information. So I'm going to assume that that's what we're doing here. So I'm going to head over to this panel to the right, and I'm going to say this is a standard burial. So I'm going to simply click on this headstone, and then a table will show up where I can enter information. So I know this is Catherine Burns. All this information is adjustable, so if you want to keep more or less information, we can certainly do that. And I'm just going to keep this simple and say save. And once I do that, I'm going to do a couple more just to show you how quickly it can move. And we'll go ahead and add some date information. You can just pick from the date picker, which makes it work really quickly. Let's save that. And then you might have noticed we had a spot for find a grave information. So if you don't have a lot of data, there might be some data on find a grave, and I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So we made an easy way for you to access that data. I'm going to go search for Clifford. This is in Princeville Cemetery here in Illinois. And by doing a simple search, even right here, I can see his find a grave ID. And I'm just going to copy that. Oh, I clicked on it. I'm going to copy it from here. And I'm going to edit his information. So by clicking on him, I can bring his data back up and edit it. And I'm just going to paste that find a grave ID and save it. And now, when I click on him, his find a grave ID link is right there, and I can click on that and access all that information that the volunteers have put on the Find a Grave website, and that just adds a little bit more information where you might not have it on your own. The downside to this is we're only keeping track of burials. So we don't know anything about, these lots here. Are they open? Are they not? Are they sold? But this is a great starting point for cemeteries without any information. So I'm going to hop to our next example that is a little bit bigger cemetery. They had maps, and their cemetery was broken into graves and lots and sections. And with that allows us to keep track of a grave's status. So whether it is owned, occupied, available, or maybe you just don't know. So you can have a more complete picture of the data in your cemetery. This is really a collection of web-based applications. So I'm going to show you 4. And again, these are customizable, and they can be customized to fit your needs. So this is a cemetery manager application. It is secure, so it requires a login. Like all the applications I'll show, they can be accessed easily through a browser. So I just want to quickly run through how we can record a sale. So I'm going to buy a lot, and I know which lot I want to buy, so I'm going to go, I can search for it through here and it'll zoom me right to it. And if I, again, go to edit it, I can see all the graves information. This particular cemetery is keeping the burial information at the beginning and the sales information down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that I have bought this grave and also mark it owned. And that is how simple it is to add owner records. Also, obviously, you'll have burial records. So I'm going to go to another lot and add a burial record. So if I open it up here in the Smart Editor, I can see that John Doe owns it. And so all I need to do to add his information is to populate it here. Again, this particular cemetery wanted to keep a family number, a funeral home, so all of this can match your current records or whatever records you'd like to keep in the future. And now I'm going to mark that it is occupied. We can again pick dates here. We can also, this is set up so that we can add attachments. So if we had a deed record we could add, or an obituary, you can save those and keep all the records in one place. So now that record is tied to this grave. So if I come down here, it is occupied and I have his first and last name. The third thing we can do with this is add a grave. So all this information is here because those are the maps that you had provided us, and we drew it in either CAD or in GIS itself, which can go pretty quickly depending on the state of your current maps. But we know that there are times where you want to sell a spot that isn't actually laid out. So we have that ability here to draw an additional grave. So I just clicked on this template to create a owned burial. And by holding Control, I can click on these corners. I don't have corners to click on here, so I'm going to eyeball those to the best of my ability and double click to finish. And now I have a new grave. So maybe John's daughter wanted a grave next to him, and we've just created one. So it is owned now by Jane. And I can hit save. And I hit cancel instead of save, but that will add a lot. And so you have the flexibility to add lots in whatever part of the cemetery you'd like to do that. Also with that, we have Bill mentioned that we can add extra layers. So to the cemetery, we have added utilities so that they know where those utilities are in the cemetery. Because if I wanted to add a grave, I may want to make sure I'm not adding one on top of the utility. So with that information, we can draw lines so that you now have a record within your mapping system of where your utilities are. And that's, we think, very useful. The next application I want to show is your available lots. So this again is a secured, this manager app is secured. This available lots could be made public, or you could keep it secure and just use it maybe in your office to help people visualize where your available graves are. So those are denoted here in green. And if we head over to the grave that I just bought, you can see that it's not available. All this data is tied together, and so as soon as it's updated in one place, it is updated everywhere else. This again can be used on a mobile device, so you could be out in the cemetery, walking the cemetery with a potential client, showing them what's available. Next, I want to show you a public search app. So this data is our demo data, but it's from a real cemetery, and they have provided a link to a search through their city's website. So I'm going to click on that. We have also provided easy to share links through our website for cemeteries who don't have their own websites to share. And this is a very simple application that can be shared with the public so that you can save your staff time in trying to find this information. You can direct people to the site. And it is very simple search. I'm going to search for Carolyn here, and it'll zoom right to it. It'll tell me only the information that I want to share with the public. And I also have the ability to draw on this map so that I can print it later. So I'm going to flag Carolyn, and then I'm going to go back and search for another relative so that I can just have one map which will show where both of them are located. And I lost it, but there we go. I'm going to say it was there. And then if I zoom out, I'm able to see both of those flags. And there's a print function, so I can print this map and take it to the cemetery with me. And I'll show you what those look like. Oop, I'm going to pick letter. It just makes a PDF within your browser. And then once you click on it, you can print this out and take it. I missed the other one, but I would zoom out more. And then you can also zoom in if you want a more detailed look at where your relative is within that location. So you can download and print as many as you'd like. And that, again, just saves staff time so that you can be freed for other tasks. Lastly, I want to show a dashboard. So far we've talked kind of at the grave level, are the individual level graves sold or occupied, but how do you get a bigger picture of what's kind of available in your cemetery? And that's done through dashboards. So again, this is just a sample. There's an unlimited amount of ways to show your data. But this gives you a good snapshot. It might be something you share with a board or maybe just internally. But we've got total graves. We have them split up by grave status. This chart here shows me about half the cemetery is sold, a quarter is for sale, and then there's another quarter that we're just not sure. So that might be a place where if I can go do some investigating, I might be able to free up some lots for sale. To the right, I just have it split up by section of the cemetery. So you can see individual, I've got a lot of graves available in C, but not a lot in B. But here, in A, there's a whole section of unknowns. So maybe that's something I can look into. So those are the four basic applications that we sort of our intermediate bucket, if you will, and I would say most of our cemeteries kind of fall into there, but there are some that need some more advanced options. And so this last cemetery I want to show is one of those advanced options. They wanted, there's a cemetery of 50,000 interments, they have 77,000 graves, and they wanted a way to route visitors directly to grave sites. And they had a couple specifications. This is the building where the kiosk is, where users can use this app. And then this roadway here is a one-way road. So one of her goals was to get people to stop backing up and driving this way. And so our routing app shows them they need to go around this way to get to their app, or I'm sorry, to the grave location. They also, this bridge is close to vehicles, so we had to make sure that we routed around that. And I'm going to search for Henry Strickler. This is taking a little bit longer because I'm remoted in, but while that is, while that's routing, I want to show you what the end result is, and that's a print that right from the kiosk her clients can print and take out. She had Mostly older clients, so she didn't want a mobile app. She wanted them to be able to have a piece of paper that gave them a picture and also gave them step-by-step instructions for how to get to that particular grave. So we're following the highlighted route on the road. This cemetery also, let's see if we're done. It is all done. This cemetery has painted marks on the road to show the rows. So they would drive up to this painted 2. We can actually see it in our aerial imagery, which I think is neat. There's a painted 2 here. And then we tell them how many rows to walk in, so that you can kind of count as you're going in. And it works really well. We tell you what row, and then how many graves you need to go to the north. So this was a fun challenge and just a very specific need that they had. But it just shows that once you have a GIS, there are lots of options for what you can do with it. Some other examples of a advanced application would be a custom application. Maybe your data structure doesn't fit what we can do with the sort of out-of-the-box applications. We can make custom applications. And we're also working on 3D mausoleum models to help navigate those as easily as you can navigate the graves. And that's the end of the examples, but I did kind of want to quickly talk about our process. So sort of in the cost estimate phase, we'll preview your data and help you decide which route is the best for you. And then our first task is to fly the drone. We will paint marks on the ground and survey those points so that it's to scale and it's in the right place in the world. We'll collect sample data so that once we put the polygons and your data together, we have some points to check to make sure everything's lining up well. We'll draw the polygon layers. Like I said before, we can use CAD or GIS. If you already have digital maps, we can import those too, and that makes the process even smoother. And then we'll take your records, whether it's in Excel. We have converted some people's paper records into Excel first before we put it into a database, and put those together. And that's where you have a complete GIS. But then we go and create maps and apps to give you user-friendly access to that GIS. It's not one size fits all. We're not selling software, but we like to say we're providing a flexible platform to help you manage your records and make better decisions. And with that, I will pass it back to Bill.
Thanks, Aaron. Sorry, I had a momentary lapse trying to get my microphone unmuted, but thanks again for showing us all those samples. A couple options that you have available. And even though we work together, I think I might have learned a thing or two from that. So thanks again. Let's double check to see if we have any questions here. So guys, if you got any questions, go ahead and put them into the question and answer box, and we'll try to get to some of those. We might answer some of those live, or we might just type you an answer there as you submit those. But let's see here. This is probably a pretty easy one. What program did we use to route the cemetery road, Aaron?
Yeah, so those first two questions are asking the same thing. And yes, we used Network Analysts in ArcMap to create those routing services.
That's a good one. Have you had any issues with confidentiality with the family members?
So what we have found really is it depends on the cemetery. This particular cemetery had 3 individuals that she did not want shared publicly. So we were able to mark those to not be shared. So I think it depends on the cemetery, but it is possible for us to leave individuals out if that is your preference.
And that would definitely be something that could be put up to cemetery management, so you all could, come up with some sort of policy in terms of, helping families and deciding on what you do or don't want. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is that it doesn't all have to be made public. It can literally just be done internally for your own use.
And I definitely wanted to point out that as much of that information as you want public can be. It can be simply just the name. It can be a name and a date. You could have owner information or not, but that is all very customizable.
Let's see. Do we have any mausoleum examples to show?
I don't have one
Yeah.
prepared, but that would be a great thing to have in the future. But we are still working on the 3D.
Yep. Future webinars. We'll have more webinars,
Absolutely.
guys. So, and then that probably kind of ties into how do you handle niches.
Yep.
That'd be the same
Similarly.
thing. Yep.
Yeah, so in the 2D world, we can just stack the polygons on top of each other. And that works okay. You can still search for the individual one you want. You just won't be able to see it in 3D, which is why we're working on a 3D solution. Okay, this is a good question, and I apologize for not bringing this up. So on the cemetery manager, it appears there was a single feature class that plots who's buried there, and so that cemetery was a one-to-one. They have a grave with one person who owned it and one burial there. But we certainly have done cemeteries where that's not the case, and I know a lot of cemeteries have more than one interment in a grave, and so we use related records. So the interface would look just a little bit different than what I showed, but it would be just as simple. There'd be one extra click to say, show me those records that are related to that grave. And then that would be similar to answer your second question, how do you handle plots that are transferred from one owner to another? You could do that with related records, and then that would keep a historical record of previous owners. But that is certainly up to the cemetery as to how they want to handle those, but those are definitely possible.
Good. Well, guys, I think we'll give it just another minute or two here. But I just wanted to let you guys know that obviously you can find additional information at the website listed on your screen. I put my email, my phone number up there if you want to or need to get in touch directly. We're out on all the social media pages, so just search CloudPoint Geographics on any of those, guys. And we'll just go ahead. If any more questions come through, we'll probably just type out answers for those rather than answer them live. But thanks again, everybody, for coming. And I hope you got some out of it, and hope to see you guys again soon. Take care.
Thanks.